Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation. My name is Klaudia Ofwona Draber. I am the founder of KODA. KODA is housed here on Governor's Island in House 47B. We are a social practice residency for mid-career artists. So we do exhibitions, residencies, and arts education programs. And we're excited and super happy to be welcoming Anna Barlik here for this exhibition, for the residency. Anna's residency with KODA is supported and carried by Adam Mickiewicz Institute. And this artist talk with Paula Vilaplana de Miguel is also co-organized and supported by the Polish Cultural Institute, New York. And I would like to invite now Izabela Gola, who is the curator of visual arts and design at the Polish Cultural Institute, New York, who is going to introduce our wonderful speakers. The conversation is going to last around 45 minutes, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end. And thank you so much once again for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure to work with Klaudia and KODA on a number of occasions. I would like to thank you for coming to this talk that we worked on for quite some time, many months now. And before I introduce Anya and Kola, I would like to say a few words about the Institute, because last year we celebrated 25th anniversary. So now it's a little bit over than a quarter of a century that we've been fostering cultural dialogue and connections, lasting connections between artists, curators, scholars, and institutions and artistic communities between Poland, the US, and the rest of the world. Through exhibitions, public programs, and lasting collaborations, we create meaningful exchanges between the generations and geographies and different disciplines to contribute to important debates of our time, such as this one. And I have the pleasure to introduce Anna Barlik, whose artistic practice moves between sculpture, drawing, and site-specific installations. Her practice is deeply rooted in questions of space, how we inhabit it, perceive it, and participate in it. Working primarily with line, color, rhythm, and power-coated steel, I love those shiny type of objects, so under she creates elegant, and geometric interventions that transform architecture into something dynamic, experiential, and unexpectedly human. Her work often begins with system structures and observations of the built environment, but ultimately invites us to reflect on our own presence within space. Anna has exhibited internationally, including at the Polish Pavilion of the Venice Architectural Biennale in 2023, and has participated in residencies across Europe and the United States. Anna is currently an artist in residence at KODA Lab and serves as professor of the Polish-Japanese Academy of Information Technology in Warsaw. I have the pleasure to introduce Paula Vilaplana de Miguel, who is joining Anna in conversation today. Thank you again for this generous gesture. Paula Vilaplana de Miguel is a curator, cultural strategist, and creative director whose work sits in the intersection of architecture, design, technology, and contemporary art. Paula is currently a curatorial associate at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, where she has contributed to projects including Peggy Whale, Core Memory, The Many Lives of the Nakabin Capsule Tower, Down to Earth, and Body Constructs. Through her career, Paula has developed projects for leading international institutions, including the Shanghai Biennale, the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Venice Architecture Biennale, Triennale Milano, the CA2M in Madrid, and many more. Her work has consistently explored how design, architecture, and emerging technologies shape contemporary life and culture. And today's conversation brings together the two wonderful thinkers and creators of form and content. And I'm so happy to collaborate with Klaudia through the Ecological Institute and have this conversation come to fruition. Excited to keep forward and joining the discussion later.
Me too.
Thank you so much, Klaudia, Izabela, for this invitation. And of course, thank you, Anna,
Really, thank you.
for offering your work and your thinking while we were doing this conversation. It's really a pleasure to be here at KODA and to be having this conversation with you.
Thank you a lot, everyone, the Polish Institute, Klaudia, KODA, and thank you, Paula, for being here. Thank you.
And I want to dive right in this exhibition, Flags of Non-Existent Countries, the exhibition we are literally inside right now, and ask a very basic and first question, like, how did you start the project? What do flags mean to you, and where did this idea begin?
It exactly began last year when we were together with Klaudia at Art Online, upstate New York. So we were both invited, me as an artist, Klaudia as a curator in residence, to the residency. And Online works this way that there is a group of people from all over the world in one place, and it's a creative hub, so everyone was working in their own field. And people were from everywhere. And because I participate in art, I participate in culture in different places, I kind of discovered that everyone has a backstory with their nationality. There were people that were also based in states, but had a longing or were describing themselves as they were from somewhere else, from the place that they were born in, but they were living somewhere else. And then because, most of my work start from observing and looking at things, from different angles, I started thinking, how do actually we perceive a flag and nationality, a sense of belonging? So where we're from, how do we feel that where we're from? And it kind of made me think what a flag is. So it started there, and the exhibition started growing, and then we started talking to Klaudia, and Klaudia said, "Oh, you should absolutely do a bigger show, maybe at KODA." And I said, "Yeah, but I want to do this one," and I really wanted to do the new works with in the context of, and especially in New York, context of nationalities, of flags, of something which communicates. Yeah, so it started a year ago.
And something that's very striking to me in the works we see, in particular in this room, is that it's the contrast with what we typically imagine as a flag, right? Because flags are typically, made out of cloth, bidimensional, but they also flowy, they move with the wind, right? And what you propose here, initially it seems flat, but it's not. It's two-dimensional, and it's rigid. It looks static, but it's not, right? Because you all the time take one, turn it upside down and say they're actually bolted, so one can disassemble and reconstruct them. So there's a very interesting tension and this shift that you do between what the assumption of a flag is and what you're coming together with. So what does this tension and this shift means for you? How did you come up with this?
So for sure, it came from the idea of how we're perceiving one another. So we're perceiving that we are from somewhere, but then with time, being at our age, or the same age, you kind of discover that you're thinking about yourself and you're redesigning your sense of being. So where you're from, what are your values? It comes all your adulthood that you're switching and you're kind of looking for something new. So the way of building a flag as a communication is you're building it on your own and with your own you're depending on your own practice of what you want to bring into your flag, to your space. And also, as I was saying, the flags are communicating something. So we usually take them as granted that there is it communicates
And from that country, in States, there's a lot of people with different flags all over and communicating different restaurants, different flavors, different cultures, and but we can totally shift it, and we can do it on our own. So the way of building a sense of where you're from, and that you're aware that you can change it, that you can come to New York, you can live here for 50 years, and you can be still leave a piece of your heart in different places. And I think it kind of questions nationality as a like construct. I think that the construct is it's not accurate anymore, Maggie. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like that, you are taking this idea of, overlapping identity and flags and giving it and like literally a dimension, right? It's like you're extruding that and, letting us know that this is something that actually takes space, and this is something that also navigates the space between two people, right? When you're presented with those flags. So I'm interested in, what this three-dimensionality and this intervention in space means for you in these works.
Yeah, so we when we were talking before, for me it's very normal to go into the space and to three-dimensional space. So I usually start, with a drawing, but because I was trained as a sculptor and I perceive space as something which is kind of, it's connected to me, and many times that I feel things in a spacious way, so I don't see them flat. I even bought of very funny glasses where the screen and everything went really flat, and then I took them off and I'm like, wow, this is how spacious I see the world right now. And I wasn't even aware of it once I took it off. Once I took away that space from myself with those glasses, I feel that everything in my perception is in a way not absolutely flat. And also the movement of the flag with the drawings that I did upstairs and the flags that I did outside is something that is connected to how we perceive the space. So the flags, they should be spacious in my perspective because they are something, it just cannot be a flat image. It has depth, it has this construct of building it, being also playful in a way because you can deconstruct them, you can shift the ideas of everything. So it wouldn't be possible only with puzzles because you can put puzzles in a specific way. In these puzzles you can rearrange and also you can add to them. So all of them are, you can connect them. So which was really important for me at that work. And we were also talking that I wanted to make them bigger because the first idea was to make them because we're talking about the scale, and the idea to make them huge was the first idea, that they're overwhelming because the idea of nationality is overwhelming. It's a lot. It's a lot to put on your plate, that you're from somewhere, that you're connected to that particular nationality country. Not everything in that country actually works for you. Sometimes the government doesn't, right? And it's a huge construct. So when I was thinking about it, I really wanted to go into the scale because it's a huge conception of something. But then because of me being in the transition of traveling places, I minimalized it, and I like it that the scale is smaller in this way because we were also saying what you said when we're having the discussion when we had the studio visit, that you can take it with you. So you can travel with it. I actually put all of those works in a suitcase and came from Warsaw. So I took 15 abstract flags, nationalities that are non-existent, and I could put it in a pocket, put it in a suitcase with you when you travel with. And many people travel to New York with a suitcase, and they bring that sense of their nationality to this place, and especially here. because here everyone's from somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's really, really meaningful what you're saying right now, because on the one hand, national identity is something can be huge, can be overwhelming, but you're making it very personal in a way by creating these scaled down flags that you can take with you, because you're also implying this idea, this continuous idea of transit, of like moving from one place to another, of like carrying like small parts of this overwhelming identity and belonging with you.
Yes, and I feel very connected to that because I've been constantly, since a few years, actually, probably most of my life, but I've been a lot in a transition. I'm based in Warsaw, I live in Koling, and I have that tiny anchor there, but I feel that I travel a lot, and there are many, many places where I left a piece of my heart. I lived in Iceland for a while at a residency, then another one, and it was a place that I feel deeply connected to. And I sound that people say, yeah, and I used to for years say, that's the language that people say on the inhale. That's very not typical, right? So I used to for years do, yeah, because I learned that there, and it was very connected to me. So I cannot get rid of it. Then I was in Finland also. Many things that I learned, that I go to sauna. So it's, that I am Polish, but then I am in the transition, and I'm an open artist. So I open my heart to the places I go to. I open my heart to New York, which I love a lot. I feel that I never left. I travel back and forth, and I feel that that I'm deeply connected to the city, even if I don't live here. I feel that this is a part of me in a way, and that way of taking a flag somewhere. Then this fall I was in China. It was amazing, and in Shanghai, and then that was in Hong Kong, and also those places, those new cultures, new tastes, new everything. Absolutely wonderful, very opening. And right now, I talked to Klaudia about it, that New York isn't big for me anymore. Shanghai has 35 million people. I would take the subway in 1.5 hours. I would go to Bund, and it was a very good, transition, with the subway. It was a good way. So yeah, if you change the scale, you change the perspective, it stays with you. It for sure stays with me because I'm very open for it. So the way of taking something into the suitcase, but also leaving something behind, is what I do like a lot. In Shanghai, I left all the art that I did there. I just gave it to friends that I got there, and I'm like, I'm not gonna take it. I don't need it. It was here. It was presented here. And I don't need it with me. I don't need the sense that I don't need to have those things. I need to share with them.
Yeah, and I want to say a little bit with this idea of belonging, because when I first saw your work, and in particular this project, and we're talking about how you came up with it, I was immediately thinking about the 2016 Oslo Biennale that was titled After Belonging, and that was continually asking what does it mean to belong somewhere, both our attachment to places and collectivities, like where do we belong, but also our relationship with the objects we own as something like we share, we exchange, you leave behind, like in Shanghai, right? And how do we manage this continuous, a loop and network of affects, but also very material, like artifacts. And I feel like your work, is really exploring this, this tension of the time and the attachment to the object, but also everything that cannot be contained within the object. So, what is belonging for you right now?
Right now, I think that I belong vastly to my suitcase for 3 years. I think that's my closest roommate for many years, and the belonging that I have is longing for something, it's also, it's connected to longing for something that I'm not sure what I'm looking for, because I belong, you know, to a culture, to a place I was born to, but then I'm constantly searching for something. This is, you know, asking questions. This is something that I think is mostly defines me as where I do belong. I probably belong in a question mark right now, because I'm constantly questioning things, spaces, and I'm just deeply curious. So yeah, so I cannot say that I have this. Well, I have it, you know, and more so, my kids are there, my family's there, so I have it in myself. But then, because I'm kind of dismantling myself into pieces and leaving, you know, like those tiny rocks behind, I have that to many places, and I have a longing to something that I haven't seen before, or and I want to see, or I want to discover. I want to see something interesting. I want to participate in spaces. So yeah, I think it's not about having, it's about chasing something, and I'm not sure what.
Yeah, and that also reflects a lot in how you approach your practice, right? Because I can see it's very playful, but it's also very research driven. And you had mentioned when we were first talking about this project that you have been doing research on flags for years, right? So can you share a little bit some of what you learned through this research? I know there's things up there, like you've been doing all of these amazing diagrams. Is there like a particular story behind the flag, or something that you encountered during this research that stayed with you in a particular way?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've been researching flags because I teach composition. So I teach how we communicate with flat images, and communication through a flag, through a nationality, is one of the basic things about composition, right? So it was really interesting for me how they were constructed, how they were changing during the time. And one of the most important things that I learned was, for example, one of the oldest flags, the Denmark one, is 13th century. It hasn't been changed. And it's also, you know, Denmark was colonizing everything around it. So we know Greenland, we know Iceland for a while, but all of those Nordic countries actually took were inspired by the Danish flag, right? So the cross. So we say, oh yeah, all the Nordic countries have this. Well, they have it for a reason, because they were, you know, they were participating, they were sailing between those places, and they were colonizing. Not that sure, which is interesting, but then you know, it's the flag that has been consistent and hasn't been changing, and all the other flags has been, you know, the American flag has been changing many kinds. Other flags, Polish one also, you know, with the changes in history, it had been changing. And what is something that strikes me the most is the color red, right? We've been discussing red, that is the most popular one, and it doesn't matter where, but red as a color that we are connecting to emotion, but to blood for sure, you know, drawing blood. And something that is also, it's also a color of stop. So when I teach composition, I start from simple forms and how we communicate between forms. I usually do it in black and white for my students. And then I always tell them we should have another semester for colors and their meanings, just because, you know, just the color red brings so much to the table within the practice of art. You know, colors bring a lot. They bring emotions, but they bring communication. And red is the one that has it all. It just has. So this is the only color that I haven't changed with the abstract flags that are here at the show, because all of them are different. They were specially produced by a company I work with for the powder coating company. So I work on the colors specifically with a lot, but red is something that I would not change, because it has an enormous weight, and I don't want to take it away from that color. It's just, you know, it has a specific weight, but it has a different frequency. It has the longest wake, so we see it from the longest distance. If we see a red dot in a green forest, we notice it first because it has the longest length of color, right? So physically, it's an amazing color.
Yeah, I was really interested in hearing about this, about your use of red, because it's indeed the only color that one identifies in these works as like an immediate color that is recognizable in flags, and to make it very prominent in the video. That's the stairs where you have the fully red flag, so one can see that, you know, that's an anchor, right, for these pieces, while everything else, you know, has changed. So can you tell us a bit the other colors?
Yes, but with the red, I'm going to just tell you that what is interesting with the red is that the red flag addresses danger, right? It's a red flag. Your red flag is something that addresses something that is a warning, which is interesting. So the other colors were specifically the blue that I had from the Biennale that I was working, and I love that color, and not because I have a lot of that paint, but because I've been working on it for 2 years, and this is the color that I kind of have been. With my practice, I've been recently doing the RGB, so it's red, green, and blue. So these three colors are constantly, you know, they're digital colors, they're the digital spectrum, but I like them to have it in a physical form, the basic ones, and the dark navy, which is almost black, but it isn't black. So, you know, there is this darkest navy blue, but it's almost black, and then the green one, which is also something that I did change. So they were even they started from those basic colors that we see in flags, which is the red, green, yellow, blue, white, and black, right? So they're the 6 basic colors that are repeatedly constructed into national flags, and the only one that really stayed is red, and the rest of them were shifted. So there is this off-white beige color, which isn't really white, and because they're kind of discussing the colors that they came from, but they're totally different. So they were supposed to talk about something that is non-existent, because when we were talking with Klaudia and with KODA with the theme of the residency, which is utopia, it's something, you know, it's something that we're longing for, which utopia is something that we're looking for because we're looking for something better. We're looking for something which is interesting. And also when I started working on the nationalities, I was already considering what I want to refer to as a citizen or as a person. So, you know, imagine you're from a country, utopic country where people clean after their dogs, or a country that doesn't attack another one, that doesn't feel is better or worse than any other country, that it's that people are nice to each other. So it's something that doesn't really happen, you know. That's not the rules how we perceive nationalities and the countries, right? But could have been. Yeah, it could have been something more, and of course it's utopic, but art is this way, that we should talk about things how to question them.
And I haven't thought about it, but I think it's so interesting that you brought in the RGB colors into this, because especially in contemporary culture, you know, our digital identities are also so much part of, you know, how we construct ourselves. So you're bringing that into these flags, even if that's not necessarily attached to a specific geographical place in the more, you know, direct and traditional sense.
And they're physical, which we perceive RGB as the screen colors, right? Because they're the typical screen colors, because they're the 3 lights that are on our phones and LED lights, that we perceive something which is constructed as 3 ways of colors, which is the red, green, and blue, and it makes those vivid colors in our screens. But then imagine that they're not digital, they're just physical, and how beautiful they are. and how you can actually touch them, you can feel them, you can feel the green trees outside, you can feel something red, and there's something, this is why I like those colors, they're very, I've been a few years right now focusing a lot on these three, and I've been shifting from different angles of those colors, but yeah, it came from the digital and into the visual, something that you can actually participate in physically.
And that's actually a great way to also jump to other projects of yours, because I want to take the opportunity to also reflect on Datament.
Yeah.
That's what you were saying right now of how you feel and experience a color. I see that as such a big thread in your practice, because even in your, whether you're talking about identity or about data, about very abstract concepts, you're also seeking to make them experiential, right? And you define yourself as a sculptor. So how does it work in your brain? How do you build in space such an abstract idea?
Well, I think in a way I'm a painter as well, because I'm into colors. I feel that that the colors this is how I've been always working with. That space is connected to, maybe I'm synesthetic. I don't know. Maybe I am. But I feel that even though I love to live in a very simple white space, and I know that I like to live, that I like everything clean and tidy and very, white, just, plain, just simple, but it makes the colors pop. So I don't feel that I need the overwhelming of the colors, so I can analyze them more like in a lab. I've been working like this since I was studying sculpture. I was probably the only one at the sculpture department that was really considering color and in my practice. In Warsaw, most of the people would do only white, black, metal, and rusted metal, and cement. And these were the only colors. So gray, white, and black. A bit of dirty. So when I was saying, well, I'm going to do something red, that hasn't been a subject before, and they were like, why? And because it takes something else to the conversation about a form. When we put a form, I have friends that are designers, and they would say, oh, if you want to design a car, you want to make it white, so you see all the flaws. But if you want to make it spectacular, you make it red. You make a Ferrari, right? Yeah. And imagine a white Ferrari, right? You see a form, of course, it's beautiful, but you make it red, and it's something more to the table. So I feel that taking away the color takes away a lot about art. But it's something also interesting when we're discussing color and in Polish art schools or in culture. We have a lot of art is like gray, and a lot of perception is very gray. But when I was a kid, I used to be here for one-man stays, and my first art that I participated in was pop art. So, imagine me in Hirschhorn Museum in Washington being 10 years old, and I would see all the huge, colorful works, and it totally strikes my practice how I am as an artist, that they were the most meaningful pieces of works that I've seen as a kid, and it stayed with me, from the 90s, early 90s. I remember the 80s in Poland, everything was really gray, and it was really poor. It was really difficult times. And then I'd seen through my life the transition from the, black and white and metal and the gray cement into something which is right now colorful, but still people, it's also something I've been researching on colors for years right now, because I started with my PhD in the northern countries, I don't know, years ago, 15 probably years ago. I started how architecture communicates through colors in the Nordic architecture, how it communicates. So you would have a red building, a yellow building, which would be the school building, the red one, which would be the falurok, which is the very red-brown color that comes from the nasal earth pigment. And so every kind of color communicated into something. And, in Poland, we have this thing for pastel colors, because it's a different amplitude of the sun, the colors work differently. If you go more south, you go to Spain, you go to Italy, the colors are more vivid, but the sun is more vivid. So they can actually allow themselves to show a brighter color because they work differently with the light. With the north, it's a bit more pale. It's interesting how the colors shift in different cultures, right?
Yeah, and color is definitely one of the defining aspects of your works. And in Betament as well, you had 4 colors for these 4 structures, and it was very striking because it was about translating all of this data into this kind of three-dimensional frame that people would have to go through, each one a color. And it was very experiential, right? Again, so what were you hoping that people would feel like when you go into these spaces in Betament?
Overwhelmed. That was the best thing that I wanted for everyone, the audience to know, because when I started thinking about Dataman as a max of production of data and how much we are producing information through TikTok, Instagram, everything. We produce a lot more data than ever before. So I wanted to create a cloud of ideas, information that is so overwhelming that you get lost in it. But then I translated it into, by simplifying it into the outline of architecture, which, as we were saying, is an average architecture that doesn't really exist, right? So an average doesn't exist, but something overwhelming and the feeling of being overwhelmed does exist, and people would do that. The kids were playing and they were running in it because, when kids are overwhelmed, especially the ones that need to do something, have fun with it. But then I had this idea, and also, talking with the curator, that you want those people to kind of get lost there. And I was drawing it so many times that I remembered the company that was welding it for us, and I was making those checks. How is it? And I was looking at the sculpture. How is it? It's 8.5 tons of steel, so it had to be 8 welders they were doing it. And first time they assembled it, it wasn't painted yet. And I walked in and I just went all the ways, all the possible paths. And those guys were looking, how does she know? How didn't she get lost? They were bumping into it. And said, I've been drawing it for so many months that I could go there blindfolded and I would just know how to work in this space because I've been drawing it and participating, and with my culture. So if I would have lost, that would be difficult, right? But yeah, I was really wanting for the people to know, because especially during the Biennale, you go to Biennale and you enter an exhibition, and many times you just walk in and walk out because you have so many national pavilions to go. And this one actually, that you were entering a maze and I was making my audience enter a place and get lost there and kind of participate in a space, also gave me the time to communicate to the viewer what I want to really say. Because, when you just glimpse around and see, I see those things on the wall, especially in the architecture Biennale, which is, the Biennale of infographics mostly and maquettes. A lot of architects are doing it. It doesn't really work well. And then they're looking, it's not precise enough. And when I made those people that would enter the pavilion to enter a sculpture, which is physical, which is a huge scale, they would have the time to ask a question, what is it about again? So I actually gave myself, as an artist, that time for the audience to ask that very important question during the exhibition. Sometimes you want to do it if you put a chair inside, right? Because if you make them stand, it's like, oh, my legs are hurting, I want to go. But if you give them a bench and you say, now sit and think about that one, they're actually going to sit and think. So this is why actually benches in museum are important, right? They're important because you want those people to stop for a second. And they're not going to do it on their own many times. You know, there are people that participate in culture like we do. So we do stop, we do look at the works. But if you want to draw their attention, you want to know how you're creating that space. So it's very, very conscious. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like this pursuit of the experiential in the midst of information overload is very timely. And when we were first talking about this work a few weeks ago, there's something that really stayed with me, that you mentioned that for you, data and information is not a solution or an answer, but the tool to ask more questions. And I think that's particularly important right now when we live in a moment where, you know, we continuously rely on data sets. We make decisions about our, you know, like very important decision politically or, you know, socially, about relying on these data sets, on algorithms, and so on. But, you know, these are just a portion of everything else that lives around them, right? So in your work, there's always this idea that nothing is as neutral or as objective as one could think, in particular with technology. So you did Datament, which, if I remember well, is the mix of the words data and establishment, in 2023. That predates the generative AI wave that we are immersed in. So how do you feel that, you know, the ideas of that work have evolved over time? Did you feel it's more urgent even today?
I think it was a great timing for that pavilion because ChatGPT was released in January, and I was finishing the conceptual work about the Datament, and then we were in the discussion, which just started, about AI because Chat was released just a few months before, and I remember the theme of the Biennale was Laboratory of the Future, and I remember critics coming in and saying, wow, this is very, very untying because you guys are talking about AI in the physical way. And when we were actually discussing AI with the Datament and how we perceive right now, it's even more because now everything, you know, is generative. But when I was discussing it with Jacek, who is the curator, we had this same thought that we as humans have the privilege to not know, and AI hallucinates. It just hallucinates. It cannot know something, but it's gonna try to say, I know. It's gonna always give you an answer. AI won't tell you, I don't know it. It's not gonna, you know, it has to give you an answer because it's built to give you an answer. As humans, we are privileged not to know, to ask questions. And we don't need to answer them because sometimes they're just questions to be asked into the void because we need to ask one. Do we need the answer? I don't think we always need the answer. I sometimes think we just need the question just to keep on going. What's the weather tomorrow? We don't know. Maybe it's gonna rain. So, you know, it's something that an AI will always give you an answer. And we are taught this way, and the new generation, the kids, they're taught that they instantly need an answer. They're not, when I was a kid, my dad, he's a professor, he would give my sister and me a book, encyclopedia, and he would say, I'm gonna give you 5 slots, the one that's gonna find this particular word in it. Okay, my sister, she's extremely smart, she would always find it. I was the stupid one in the family. So, you know, it's very difficult, but Well, I just live with it. So she would always find it, but it make us, look at books and see how the knowledge is actually constructed. And the books that we would have to read would have to have the source. And right now we are reading something where my 11-year-old son could be the source in putting information with the AI to the bot, and it can be reproduced. So you don't know the source. And the source was actually, once the source was spoken knowledge, so we would talk, to different history, and then we would write it down with the, for religion-wise or history-wise, we would write it down. So the privileged people would write and read, right? And now, you don't really need to do it. You can even just say something to the bot. You don't need to write well. And what is also striking is so many people are not reading, not questioning. The book's something very old school, right?
Yeah.
How many people do you actually know that participate in reading culture or are interested in something?
Yeah.
It's just not. And so the AI, I think it's, but what is great about art is that I get the chance to participate and watch those things, and I don't need to comment on it instantly. It's gonna come with time.
Yeah, and that's actually where I wanted to go next, because right now that we relegate so many decisions to AI, I feel like your work acquires a more critical dimension even now, and you make it very very present that technology and data has its limits, even if we rely more and more on it. And this is an ongoing question right now, like even within technology, like where is the limit, right? Like even like technological companies put in like the brakes into, this is what my AI is not gonna want to do. I'm talking about military users, and so on. But you as an artist, what do you see your role within this dialogue, and what do you think our responsibility, as artists, curators, and people engaged in, like critically thinking about our everyday environment sits?
Well, we cannot run away from it. It's happening. It's like we know. Cars happened, electricity happened, AI happened. It's something that we're not going to stop. For sure, it's interesting to observe it in a very distant way, maybe. But then I think that there are boundaries, and they should, because for example, how I teach my students, I noticed a lot of students using AI for design purposes. Like they had I don't know, they were supposed to design a poster at a different studio, so they would just prompt design a poster with this, and that. They wouldn't do any insert on their own. They would just write an idea, and it would just take out something. And it was really striking because I noticed that, a year or 2 years ago that the first year students were doing it, and they weren't looking for their own personality, for their own space. And the way that I teach as well is that I give them the space to do it. I say, okay, we're sitting at the table, and everyone's ideas are equally important. We are all equally important. It's not that I'm going to tell you what to do, because I got AI. I'm not going to give you the answers. I'm just going to say, what questions do you guys have? How can we sort it out together? How can we be very transparent about knowledge and how we can participate in it together? And I think it's very important right now that people are really discussing their ideas with queer students, queer people, with people actually, not with computers. It's something also which is happening, that we're not communicating one with another. You're not chit-chatting anymore, you're texting. Different times, I like to look at things, and I like to analyze them with time, and I like to give myself that time to analyze it. So I'm not gonna say it's good or bad, but I sure am lacking right now any kind of critical thinking that we're lacking in society. We're not questioning things. People are just taking it, everything what they get from outside. They don't, I asked my kid, he said, "Oh, mom, something is here, it's working this way." And I said, "How do you know that? Did you see it on Instagram?" It's like, how do you know? I'm like, yeah, so you question it? Do you know do you know it's real? Or do you know it's not real? Do you have the ability to ask the question, is it real? Is it, how do I know it's true? Because I've seen a video of it? Because I've seen an article with no backup, with no, when you're writing a book, you need to have your sources. And when you have the book that you're saying, I got this from this book, from that book, you're writing a text, like any kind of text for academic text. You need to have your sources. And right now, nobody has sources. They're everywhere. They're, out of the TikTok source. And it's not, people are not critically thinking about nothing of what's happening right now. So this is something that I'm lacking, and I want to see what happens because, I'm deeply curious about life and structures.
Yeah, and at the same time, there's an increasing lack of physical engagement, right, with others, with space, with the city. And I know that we are running almost out of time, so I'm just gonna wrap up with a question before we pass it on to the audience. You've worked in many scales, both with very abstract ideas, like data, creating this framework, but also in this incredible world that we have now about smaller flags, digital identity, and national identities. But there is always in the work a pursuit of making critical thinking shareable and public.
Yep.
And I know that you trained as a sculptor, but you did a master's in urban planning.
Yeah.
So to me, there's a natural direction towards the public realm in your work. So are you planning to explore this other dimensionality of your work into public space? Do you have anything in the works?
Yes, I'm actually right now wrapping up a big sculpture in Warsaw, and I'm just waiting for the last city council this Thursday, I think, and it's going to be huge. It's going to be probably the size of these 2 rooms, and I have only July to make it, so I'm just gonna do it in July. And then also in Liepāja, and the cultural, the cultural capital of Europe next year, I'm doing a huge sculpture. It's gonna be around 400 meters long. It's gonna be a line drawing that's gonna kind of going to the stage, but it's actually very interesting because the first major I did was jewelry design, then after a year I started sculpture because the jewelry was too small and I was doing those tiny architecture for the body. It didn't work for me, it was too small. Then I did the sculpture and I grew in scale, and when I did finish sculpture I did the postgrad in urban planning because I wanted to put those huge sculpture in huge public places, so I would know how the public space actually works. And yeah, so I was going to the Governor's Island today, and I was looking at downtown Brooklyn. You see the skyline. I was like, oh, I would do this line there, and it would be like so perfect, which is one small architecture, like an intervention of space. And this is something that I would do, and maybe I should.
And we're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
And I think we have a few more minutes for all of you to ask questions.
Natalia.
I was like, I just love everything that you're saying. So I just wanted to bring up clay because we were having a conversation also about the thing that's sort of invisible that people forget about is like we need to practice and we need to clay. And I like what you're talking about engagement because, once you have somebody's attention for a finite period of time, it's like, what do we want to do with that time that we have with each other? And this idea that we should just be running towards a finished product is really ridiculous, you know, and like, what is the point of that? It's like, I don't need that in the art world, in my educated, like in any part of the world. So I love this idea of like slowing it down and like having room to play. And so I don't know if it's a question, but maybe more like, how do you play? Like, what are like the sort of things that you're thinking about right now in the sense of your projects?
I think what when we were talking about it is the process.
Yeah.
That exactly what we want to do is we don't want to finish. No, we just don't want to finish. I will be finished if I'm dead. And I will be dead if I'm 90-something probably. As I established, I'm going to live a long life. At least I hope I will.
I know.
Because I'm trying to make it happen. Because I think it keeps me going.
Yeah.
That the longest that I'm going to work, and there's a saying in Polish that you're chasing a rabbit, but it's not. You don't want to catch it. You just want to chase it all your life. And it's just you. And I want to chase the rabbit, and you just don't want it. You don't need rabbits. You just want to run there, and you want to run all your life. And the longer you run, the more fun it is. And you know, it changes the direction, and you're like somewhere in a different place, in a different forest. And this is how it should be. I think this is art, that we just wanna chase some things. We don't know what. I don't know what I'm chasing, but I want to chase it. Yes. Till the day that I die, right? That I'm dead. That I'm not chasing anymore.
But I think as artists, like we can do a little bit of training, an invitation to help people stay in the moment and stay engaged and realize, oh, it's not about the end. It is like, maybe it is about this moment of like curiosity, asking questions, like unsureness, like maybe that is the point.
But also if you finish something, it gives you space to start something new.
It's like
So if you wanna, like when I remember I finished Datament and I had this proposal of showing this huge sculpture in different places around the world, which was totally not ecological, because imagine taking almost 9 tons of steel to Japan from Venice and to Poland and to America. It's nonsense. It's something you don't want to do. So I actually cut it at the National Gallery. I took, I don't know how to call it in English. I don't know the name, but it's just a the one that turns and if I know the name in Polish. And I just cut it. And it was so liberating that I got rid of that weight that I had from that particular exhibition, that I don't need it anymore, that I don't need the almost 9 tons of steel in my history, because, it's very easy as an artist to stay with one work. And you stay with that work and you're like welded into a chair and you're staying in that chair and you're not letting yourself walk, talk, and discover something else. You're not going anywhere else. You're just staying there. And it shouldn't be hard to define one another. It's like you should prioritize
is the engagement and the presence if you don't stick with just one object.
Yeah, so you can finish something, but you need to be open for something new. So I love it that I finished those works, because I have already in the studio, I have the space of working about the spacious drawing, and I don't know where I will go next. I know I will finish those 2 works in the public park in Warsaw, that I'm gonna do the Lepaja, which is 2027. And I was talking to Klaudia, I have a calendar free for 2028, and at first I felt this angst. I'm like, what am I gonna do in this year? It's 28 and I have nothing booked. And I was like, yeah, I need to finish something to open myself for something new. So I also need that space there, because if I have too much on my plate, I'm not gonna make it happen. Yeah.
Any questions?
We're good? Isa and Klaudia? No? I love the energy. Yeah. Thank you, and thank you everyone for coming, especially at such a beautiful day outside, and you're inside. Thank you.
Thank you. Really, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, really nice. Thank you.
Thank you.